Recording in progress.
Hey everyone, welcome to another engaging and inspiring conversation. I say that with confidence because I know this guest, you may have listened to him before. He's still evolving his business with a love for chiropractic and a love of helping doctors grow their practices. So, Dr. Jeff Langmaid, thanks for being here today.
It is my pleasure. I'm super happy to be back. We connected many moons ago, and then we saw each other in person about a year ago,
Yeah,
I think for the
yeah,
first time ever. So it's
yeah.
awesome to connect again here. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, that we connected at one of the remarkable practice events, and that was really fun for me because I got to see in person so many people that I had only met on a screen, and had some really great conversations. Which is why I wanted to have you on, the show again, because what I have watched is you consistently, evolve your business and try different things. And what I also really love is your consistency. Like, you started a podcast back in 2015 and you are still going strong. And I know the commitment that takes. I mean, listeners, you know that I took a break from this show for a couple of years. Jeff, let's talk about first the Evidence Based Chiropractor. Great podcast for chiropractors for many reasons. But when you started that, did you envision it was going to have this longevity?
No, I started it basically totally on a whim. I had like no, and all of what I'm about to say, I would not advise. I started it on a whim, without a plan, no positioning, and just kind of hoping for the best. And even like the format of like 20 minutes. It was just because I'm like, like an hour seems like a long time. So I guess I'll do 20. Like there was like no thought process. And then it was like 50 episodes in. I'm like, oh, this is research and marketing in the time it takes to get to your practice. Great tagline. But I would not be telling the truth if I said it was all part of a grand design. It really was just I knew I wanted another opportunity outside of email and social to reach out to people and have like a platform, especially back then. A lot of the platforms were far less evolved than they are today. Many that exist today didn't even exist back then. So it was really just an opportunity to connect. And I thought that it would be a great extension of some of the things that I was currently doing. And then it took, I always jokingly say, but I actually mean it, probably like the first 40 episodes in hindsight now, I'm like, these are unlistenable. Like I am like, this is like the worst book reading ever created. So it took like a long time, like a year to actually get into any sort of groove. And then as time goes on, now I'm just like, I can't break the streak.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it takes a tremendous amount of discipline and consistency. I mean, I think that we're among some of the OGs in the podcasting world because, what I hear from that is similar to me. You just started with heart. You just started with like, I got a message. I think this would be of value. In 2015, we started our shows. There was not as many podcasts as they are now. It was not the kind of medium it is now. And it just was a nice way to kind of share and connect and give information. Even the recording ways, the things that we did back then. But you stuck with it and you found what's something that is meaningful for you. And essentially it changed your business, in a dramatic way. Listeners, if you don't know the things that Dr. Jeff is doing now, we're going to give you a kind of a quick like recap. If you don't mind, Jeff, I am going to put in the show notes a link to your previous episode with me. But I think for all intents and purposes, like, what are you doing right now? And then we'll just kind of give us a teeny little bit of like the backstory of how you got here from being in clinical practice to doing the kind of work you're doing now.
Yeah, totally. I'll touch on one item and then I'll give you that hit list. So you mentioned it, and I can't agree with you more that the podcast was foundational to the elements that exist today from a connection perspective, from an opportunity perspective, and even from now a monetization perspective. So that's a really important foundation I don't think should be overlooked. And it's not a do it today, get something tomorrow. It was a long time and a lot of work, but that's typically what's rewarded the most over time in any market. So the same as what you've experienced and seen with what you've been able to do, I just would reinforce that for everybody listening and watching as well. But to answer your
Yes.
question super
We could
specific.
talk about podcasting at length here for, I think.
Yeah. So I've been fortunate to be involved in like a ton of different businesses. I'm involved in probably a half dozen different businesses today. And much of that, I could probably say, does go back to the podcast in some ways because it gave me the platform for people to take note of who I am, to take note of what I'm doing. So today I still own and operate the Evidence Based Chiropractor. It's kind of my personal brand. We have the podcast, a variety of different like in-office products, and our MD referral program, MD Connection, is kind of the flagship there. Jason Deitch and myself, chiropractor out in San Francisco, who I've known for probably almost 10 years. We created the Smart Chiropractor many, many moons ago. Operating that today, that product and service has really evolved into more of a media platform and media hub. Flagship service under that is called Patient Pilot, which is really a patient lifecycle engagement tool that uses email to onboard new patients, better retention during active care and reactivations. We have an exciting partnership with ChiroHealth USA that we just launched so that everything could be compliant, which is awesome. And then from there, I've really splintered out in a few different directions. I do the marketing for Chiro Matchmakers. I owned a staffing and recruiting business, technically speaking, a locum business for a number of years. That got bought by Chiro Matchmakers a few years back, and I do all of the marketing behind the scenes. I'm not front-facing in that business, but I'm behind the scenes and a minority owner in there, and I do all the marketing. And then I've had some really cool and interesting projects along the way. I owned a practice until last year, and we sold that practice. That was a great experience, a lot of learnings there. I have a radiology company called Read My MRI. We use AI tools for it's consumer facing, not doctor facing. And that got picked up by a local health tech incubator here in Tampa. So that's exciting. And I've also been doing some investing in kind of equity stakes in various hardware and software companies within chiropractic. So those are probably the big things that come to mind. And it certainly keeps me busy every day. And I like having my hands in a variety of things, including some AI tools where we've been developing some products and services in that space for chiropractors as well.
Mm-hmm. What I hear in that is a couple of things. One is that you've taken your learning and your clinical knowledge as a chiropractor and transformed that into a business using other skills that you have, right? Something that I always want listeners to gather from these shows is like, look, there's not just one way to practice chiropractic. Way back in school, I was taught, there's the art, the science, and the philosophy, right? And your way of expressing chiropractic and contributing to our profession is different than mine, right? Because I'm not reading the research and I'm contributing that way. I'm not doing the other, marketing stuff that you're doing. And I really want people to take that to heart. I mean, we are designed to evolve. We are designed to change. And also I think to question our skills and are the best use of our time, right? And clearly you have zoned in on that for yourself. You are aware of the things that bring you joy. You're aware of the things that you are easily good at. And you're working in that zone, it seems to me, quite a bit.
Yeah, I am super fortunate. I think it's fortunate and by design in terms of really, I'm exactly as you said. I appreciate what you said, and I would agree with it. And I'd reemphasize that point where I truly do believe, you attract in what you want, what you put out, whether it's energetically vibe oriented, whatever you want to say. Obviously it takes the work as well. As I say, like luck is preparation and opportunity. So yeah. I think a lot of decisions along the way. Now I have a deep graveyard of businesses that have not worked out, which I'm happy to go into. Many more have not worked out. And I have paid the tax heavily in heartache and finances. In terms of find
me an entrepreneur who has it. That is a true in their heart entrepreneur.
That's right. But to me, it is really about putting in that time. Whether you are a doc who's saying, "Man, I want to grow the biggest practice," whether you're a doc saying, "I want to have a great practice, but also great work-life balance," or whether you're a doc saying, "Man, I'd love to take the knowledge and skills of patient care and apply it in different ways." I think it's really about understanding and taking time to think about who you are and what you really want, and then taking those action steps each and every day. I'm going to say with the understanding that it's going to take time. I speak for myself when I say, I remember back in the day being like, man, like I felt as though I should have been speaking on stages years before I did. So the most important part was not giving up during the time where it was like, what the heck, kind of thing. And I think it's important, whether you're in practice as well, you might be like, man, I'm bringing everything to the table, but my patient numbers aren't where they need to be. Now, you might just be making strategically bad decisions, but it also just might be that you're making the right decisions, but there's a turnaround time. One of the 33 principles, every process takes time.
Yeah,
So
my favorite one. I
understand,
think that's my favorite
and the
principle.
work you put in today, it's like money in the bank. That interest accumulates over time, not overnight. I think it's just really, really important. And one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten, it makes me think of it as we're chatting here, is, the number one thing you can do as a small business owner, entrepreneur, however you want to define it, is protect your confidence. And I always try to think about that, where it's like, what are you putting in from, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but, from your social feeds? How are you curating your social feeds? Who are you surrounding yourself with? What are the things you're watching? Are they things that are protecting and enhancing your own confidence, or are they things that might make you feel less than, that might make you feel some of the attributes that we wouldn't want to really associate or don't associate with success? And I think that those are just really, really important fundamental things that are often overlooked.
It's like your vibe is your tribe.
That's right.
Right? Like it's what you are bringing around you. It's surrounding yourself with people who are, I do think there's a sweet spot of, surrounding yourself with people who you inspire to be like and are aligned with your values and your vision, you can have a good time with and can push you. And I think the sweet spot is knowing that that gap is still attainable, because, I don't know about you, but I've been in rooms where I'm like, you guys are all so far ahead of me. Like, I actually feel less about myself because there's so much space to catch up. And that, I think, is sometimes, we put ourselves in these situations because we think we want to grow and want to get bigger, but then like bigger as a person, not necessarily in our business. But there has to be that reference, right, of like where you can actually see your next steps. And then once you get to that next level, then surrounding yourself to another kind of element of life. Does that make sense?
100%. I actually have a great example of that personally. So I started playing guitar in high school, and when I went to my senior year, really, and when I went to college, my suite mate, I've actually talked about this multiple times. I'm so happy you brought this, made me think about this. He was like just a little bit better. My suite mate in college, just a little bit better than me at guitar. And it was like fundamental to my ability to get better. Whereas if he ripped, I would have been like, oh man, and probably not actually wanted to play with him or done anything else. Incidentally, like the year after our freshman year, like he quit playing. I've gone on to play and played in bands and everything else. But it was like exactly what you're saying, where it was like, man, just being that one step ahead was like so fundamental to me being like, oh, I can engage. I can feel like I can ask the right questions, but I'm inspired to get better and work a little bit. So I agree. I think there's really a balance that's optimal in terms of being around people that are one or two steps ahead of you, that really can show you the way in the relatively in their not too distant past, while also being able to have maybe those individuals that you strive to be in 5-10 years, whatever it might be, or where they're at from whatever you deem success to be, because it's not always monetary, as we all know. So
that is the core of, the message I try to bring to people here is, one is like, you get to create your own rock star doctor life, right? Like find me a musician who hasn't had to reinvent themselves. Find me a musician who hasn't had to face criticism or from others about their choices. I mean, obviously, friends, we don't want you going down the dark road of, what some musicians have had to face, but taking to heart the positive things about you having your skills and your talents and things to shine within you. And it's your job to keep uncovering them and to keep growing with yourself and your people and inspiring other people around you. Jeff, what I liked about our pre-chat too was like this whole idea that you've never stopped questioning what your next move is going to be, right? You're staying engaged and you're watching what's going on. You're still reporting on current research. And to me, like, it seems like you're using a lot of different parts of your brain. Like you've got this analytical side and then you've got this musical side, right? So how do you balance all that? Or maybe actually, I bet you the balance is that you have a creative side to help you when you have to really, like, it's people that I know that do art or really creative projects, it gives them that grounding and that relaxation that allows them to perform in the analytical world as well.
Yeah, it's hard to self-analyze that, but I would say I am somebody that just inherently does like creating things and then implementing things. So I do kind of I like the math. I am the guy who checks every business bank account every day. I generally rectify the books if we don't have a bookkeeper in the business. So I am very specific about those things. But then I also like creating space to be able to say, how can we make this product or service better? What am I using that I could adapt, apply, edit, update, and offer to others? So I do I think, for me, it is energizing to do both of those things because it does, it gives, it feeds me on both sides. So, some people might be a little bit more one way or a little bit more the other. That's great too. But for me, I do like a little bit of that dichotomy where it's like, I feel the same thing, speaking and things like that. It's like, I am a really private and introverted person. But I'm happy to do things like this. I'm happy to go speak on stage, but you put me in front of a room, there's many chiropractors that have skills that are completely different and way, I'll say different than mine in a way better way. You put me in a business networking group with 8 people. I can be silent for 2 hours. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet my house I'll be silent for 2 hours. So I like it one way and the other, I guess you could say, and that's just my personality.
No, but to me, it just comes back to self-awareness, right? And I think for me, one of the gifts of maturing, we'll say, I think I am mature in some parts of my life, is the wisdom that comes with just knowing who you are and really owning those things a little bit more, like knowing, hey, I'm great in big circles of people. I'm not great in this situation. I need to work on this, or also I just don't want to do it. So I think it's a self-awareness piece for you that clearly you've honed in on, because it matters, right? It matters for us to be putting ourselves in situations that are aligned with us, but also that help us shine. Because I don't know about you, but I've listened to podcasts and I've watched videos with people who were clearly uncomfortable and, they thought they should be doing it because, everyone else is doing it, or this is the way to grow your practice. And I know, you love to teach docs how to market. And I like to remind people, you don't have to market in all the ways. You really have to bring in your personality. And honestly, we could touch on this with AI, I'm sure too. I'm not really a big fan of it, but I think what needs to happen more and more these days is people bringing their personality into their marketing, because a lot of it can be easily duplicated, right? So what are your thoughts about docs owning their personality more in their practices and owning who they are and translating that into effective marketing?
I think it's critical. And I think, as you pointed out, there's a variety of ways to be able to apply your skill set to growing your business or your practice. And I think there's a balance between stretching your comfort zone, which is critical for growth, and just pushing rocks uphill all day, every day, right? So part of that starts with who you are and your interests, and just really having what I'll say is a truthful self-analysis, right? What are the things that are, and I like to think about it like this, very basic, where it's like, what are the things for me that are just off limits? I don't like to do it. It's de-energizing and I'm not good at it. Okay, I don't need to do that stuff. What are the things that I know is great for the business? I know I could do pretty good, but I just procrastinate on. That's probably a good area to stretch comfort zone. And then what are the things where I'm like, this is great, this is easy, and this energizes me. Okay, great. I want to do a lot of that too, right? So to me, I think there really is an opportunity to look at it. And again, I'll use that example where for myself, I'm happy to shoot video as the day is long. I'm happy to go on stage and speak. But you put me in a business networking group or something, it's not going to be where I'm going to shine. I'm going to come out de-energized. It's just, but many docs can be the exact opposite. We're like, I'm allergic to video. I never want to be on stage. But man, you put me at a business networking breakfast with 10 people, I'm going to make friends with everybody on day one. It's great. But I often think that too many people don't take honest stock of it and then really say, okay, where does this fit into those buckets for me? And then what are the actions I need to take to get the results that I desire? Because the consistency of action is ultimately, whether it's diet, whether it's exercise, whether it's marketing, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, it's the consistency of your application that will deliver the result. And result can be bad or good. It's the consistency of application that's the number one predictor of success. And I find that often there can be inconsistency with many people, and that leads to compounding challenge over time. Now, again, I'm not a fan of anybody saying I'm going to push rocks uphill for 50 years. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. But also, it can't be flighty and fleeting. And if you're a doc, especially growing a practice where funds are really tight, I empathize with the fact of you got to make decisions day in and day out because you can't help anybody if your door's closed as far as adjusting them is concerned. So it's really, but there's a balance there.
Yeah.
And I think the number one thing I'm always a fan of, and marketing, I'm the first guy to say, literally every single thing works. Like it drives me nuts when a doc's like, I tried that and it didn't work. Well, that's on you.
Yeah.
100% of the time, unless you got totally scammed by a Nigerian prince, like unless that's the case, then it's on you. It's not on them. You didn't know the right questions to ask. You didn't hold them accountable, whatever the case may be. But I'm a big fan of literally every single thing on planet Earth works.
Yeah.
But what's the outcome you're looking for? And are you actually working it? Because and I've just seen it too many times to not believe it at this point in time.
Yeah, and I love what you said about consistency being such a predictor of success. How many times do we see people in our practices that, well, they change their care plans without, talking to us first, and now they're complaining about their results? Well, you don't really do, what I said. Or all of a sudden, they go to the gym for a few weeks and then they stop and then they wonder, why they aren't getting results. I mean, I think, again, like relationship health, parenting, your own personal health as a doc, like everything that you do matters to the outcome. And maybe, listeners, this is a gentle invitation for you to take stock of, okay, in your marketing, what are you doing these days? And if you're sitting there thinking something's not working, can you casually look at it and say, well, have you been consistent with it? Is there a gap that you need support with? Then we can direct you to where you could reach out. But is there just a consistency piece, right? Is it with your communications in your practice? Is it maybe with your own personal health? Like, where can you be a little bit more consistent to really change your results? Because I think it is, I agree with you, Jeff, it's like one of the biggest things. It's like doing the same thing, even as boring as it can be sometimes, ongoing, is where the game really changes.
Yeah, and I'll highlight something you mentioned briefly, which is regarding patient care. A lot of this comes down to a friend of ours you mentioned earlier, Dr. Stephen Frenson, uses the term expectations and agreements all the time within his coaching group, and I'll apply it to our conversation here. If you have patients, for example, dropping off, as you said, updating their own care plans, aka ghosting your practice and not completing things, that's really it. I'm just a big fan of like radical candor, simple language, and direct communication up front. And I find that, there's just often we can get into our and this is just human nature, all of us. I'm the same way in my businesses, but I try to be mindful of it. And I think one thing I'll recommend and encourage docs is think about how you are framing your initial intake, your report of findings, and your care plan recommendations. If you haven't thought about it, and I mean literally like think about how do I say, what do I say, when do I say, and how does it go? And you haven't thought about that in at least 6 months. I'm not even going to say 6 years. Even you should be thinking about that every 6 months and just sort of self-auditing and saying, am I setting myself up correctly? And you setting yourself up correctly means, am I setting the patient up correctly? Meaning, are you communicating with them in a way that they can understand, that is clear? Massive issue that is clear and that sets them up for success based upon their health goals and your findings. And are you saying it in a way that they can understand? And I think that would go such a long way towards assisting practices out there, ensuring that patients are getting the care that they need, getting the results that they desire. And as a byproduct of that, the business that you own is as healthy as it can possibly be. But I often find, and I've visited a lot of chiropractic practices over the course of my time, there can be, I'll just say, some sloppiness ultimately. And it's not that the doc's not a good doc. It's not even that they're not a good communicator in some cases. They just haven't self-audited. How am I saying? What am I saying? Because we get into our patterns. And then often those things can drift. And an example of this very clearly, if anybody's trained a front desk staff person to answer the phone, you go back 6 months later and ask them how they're answering the phone. It is a lot different than the last day that they completed training. It's just natural. And that's okay. It doesn't mean it's nefarious or that they're trying to do anything. And the same thing holds true with yourself as the doc. So I think some of those early communications with patients, knee heart to heart, are some of the most impactful that are rarely self-audited in a practice.
And I like that you brought that up, that it is something worth revisiting periodically, right? I mean, we have an offer right now, and that's not an offer. It's like a gift to everyone. It's 26 ways to light up your practice in 2026, right? And one of the things is look at your communications. Like, when is the last time you actually took a step back and thought, for you as a doc, okay, what is important to you now in your initial visit with people? What's important to you on your daily visits? What's important to you, during your reports, your progress exams? And it may be different now because of your clinical experience. It may be different now because of the culture in your practice, maybe because you've just evolved and the dynamic and your languaging is different. I think it's important to evaluate the self. I'm in the process of revamping the clinic website. And as I'm going through and writing new copy and making it, really reflect me and it sounds, it's been such a great process because on the one hand, I look and I go, who the heck wrote that? Like, I look back, I'm like, that does not sound like Dr. Melissa right now. And the other part of it has made me really distill down, like, what is the tone that I want not only to be expressed when someone lands on my website, but also it's reminding me how I want to show up my practice. So I think that was a really great, we've covered a lot of ground here already today, Jeff, but when we talk about taking a step back and looking at how you're communicating and being clear and candid with people, but making sure it sounds like you. I mean, I'm a big fan of frameworks of communication. I'm not a super big fan of scripting because unless you can really personalize it and you can really add in your own, authentic flavor to it, I think it can come off for some people as, just too scripted and not always the same. It doesn't relate to people, but that could also just be the way it gets delivered. I think having a clear understanding of what you want to convey and how and why is much more, for me, that's much more realistic. I would love to just dial back the time a little bit, because when you first launched your podcast, you were still in clinical practice.
Correct.
Yeah. And I feel like you had some practices that were multidisciplinary.
That's right.
That was also, can be a unique situation. Did you start your podcast because of gaps you were seeing in the research community or gaps you were seeing in that kind of practice? Just take us back a little bit, because the reason I ask you this question is because one of the things I love about your show and the emails I get from you and everything are that you're representing all the evidence in chiropractic. Right? Like, some docs are going to have their backs up when they hear evidence-based, because chiropractic is all evidence-based, and they think that you're maybe only going to be talking about back pain or mechanical issues, but you're not. You're talking about neurology. You're talking about whole body wellness. You're talking about some really cool stuff. And let's be real. There's a division of thoughts in our profession at times, right? And I think what I like about your show is it kind of bridges it a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because when I chose the name, the Evidence Based Chiropractor, it was like a year before the podcast. I started maybe the business or company in 2012. And I literally had 4 or 5 names. I don't even remember what the others are. And I just chose that because the URL was available. There was no political agenda at all. Yeah. I'm like, oh man. And then by the time 2020 rolls around, things changed a lot.
Yeah.
That was I don't know, either the best decision or most challenged decision. Maybe
I think it's accurate.
I'm glad that I chose it, but yes, it's funny to think back, because I literally was just I don't know. I wish I could remember what the other options were, but they were anyway. So when I
could share with you same stories about why it's called Rockstar Doctor Life. I mean, and I try to infuse it into different shows for the new listeners, because some people are like, "What the hell are you talking about? You're not a rock star." I'm like, "No, I am not. I don't play a single instrument, but here's where it came from." And it sticks now. But anyway, I don't want to cut you off. So let's go back to why you started your show.
Yeah, I think at the time, I liked the idea of being able to extend the message beyond email alone. So part of it was that I thought, well, if I could just talk through this, I think it's just easier than typing out sometimes. And I do record my podcast, not live like they're recorded, but I don't really chop it up at all. And I don't edit. I'm one take nearly every single time. So it really is my fluid thoughts about what I've read and what I've seen. So, and it's actually been that way since the beginning. So I just was like, this is probably an interesting way. Not everybody likes to read. I also was different people like different things. Certain people like video. At that time, ironically, even I started the podcast, I'm like, I am never going to be one of those talking heads on video. That didn't work either. I was like, okay, well, not everybody's going to get on my, just pragmatically, I'm like, not everybody's going to get on my email list. People learn in different ways. And there's probably some ways that I would discuss or talk about what I'm learning different verbally, like fluidly, than I would typing it out, at which point I am editing everything I type, like writing copy, writing emails. It's like you're like trying to condense for clarity. It just comes out like totally different. And obviously, the nuanced, et cetera, is missed in that as well. I think we all can know that from text messages. What is that person? Is this sarcasm or not? So it was just, that was really, I'm going to say, the impetus for it in that way. Now, it did tie in, like our MD Connection referral product does have a research component. So I was like, this is also an interesting way to be able to highlight some of what we're doing for our members in a way that you don't need to be a member. You can just like learn about the research if you don't want the final product and all of the system associated with that for referrals. So that's really, I'm going to say, really what started it. I was practicing in an orthopedic group at the time, a large orthopedic group, Florida Orthopedic Institute. They're probably the largest in Florida now. At the time, they were growing fast, but pre-private equity when I was there. But there wasn't really a direct tie-in to them or to the other doctors there, more so than it was like, this is a cool and interesting platform. I also was like, I think I can do it. Now, as I said at the top of this episode, like the first 40 are like unlistenable in hindsight. But I was like, blindly confident. I'm like, I can do this. So that was really it. And I also felt as though there was a place to be able to highlight, and we've always stayed pretty much on this format where it's like a single peer-reviewed piece of research one time a week. Where it's not like, I'm not trying to do 27,000 things. Shows like that can be great too, by the way. But for me, I just was like, there's not really a place where somebody could, like, for example, what we do is like tune in every week, learn about one specific paper in a semi-concise way, applying it at the best that I can anyway, still to this day, the best I can, to practice day in and day out. How do you communicate it? What does it actually mean? So all of those things combined made it sort of just this ripe area of opportunity to be like, oh, I think that could be a place that I could make an impact. And that's what started it, really.
Yeah, and my show, had the same trajectory, which I think will just nicely bring us back as we wrap this conversation up. You start with your why, right? You start with heart. Like, I didn't start my podcast thinking it was going to be a business at all. I just was like, I'm tired of there not being any conversations about how a single mom is growing her practice, because everything I was hearing back then was, a lot of other great ideas, but the conversations that were most beneficial to me at that point in my life were my girlfriends who were chiropractors. And I was hearing, okay, how are you dealing with meal prep or breastfeeding and also trying to grow practice and getting the kids to hockey? And and I had to grow my practice differently through a lot of content marketing back then because I could do it when they were in school. So I just had this place to like share this, this heart-led mission essentially. And then from that, it just grew into other things. And I think listeners, that can apply to so many things in your clinical practice. Like, always come back to the why. Come back to why it matters. Trust that you have that. Surround yourself with the right people to keep, we talked about earlier, your tribe is your vibe. Guard your confidence and keep consistent too, right? Like with everything you're doing, and know that, it will all add up to a life that matters to you if you follow some of those principles.
Yeah, very well said.
I thought it was kind of a nice way to wrap all these key points up, Jeff. I'm like looking at my notes going, well, we talked about this, we talked about that. But if you had any, okay, I got two questions for you. One is, if you have advice to a new grad, like knowing what you know now from the way your practice and your career has gone, what would you say to a new grad?
One, I would say thank you for being a chiropractor. The second thing I would say is get out there with everything you can, meet as many people as you can, and just do it. And what I mean by that is, I probably didn't take it, and some of this is probably a result now of who I am today, but I didn't take marketing very seriously and struggled in my first practice tremendously. And I think that that's a lesson learned in terms of really, this is about getting out there. It's about the hardest thing you can do is get somebody to pay you money for a service. It's really hard. Like, it's like a fractional percentage of people will ever start their own business. Like it is unusual. And it's really hard to get people to walk through that threshold. It doesn't mean, but the rewards for that are great, not only monetarily, but lifestyle impact, et cetera. So I would say to a new grad, I would say, thank you for being a chiropractor. Now go get after it. Don't make excuses. Get after it. Meet as many people as you can. Accelerate the timeline of your own success, which will be directly proportional to your ability to break through obscurity. The biggest challenge that every new doc has is obscurity. The faster you break through obscurity, and the example of this is these are the extremes and they're both the truth. If 0 people knew who you are, what you did, or that you were in practice, how are you going to get a new patient? If every single person in your town knew exactly who you were, exactly what you did, exactly the problems you solve, and exactly how much it costs, you'd never want for a new patient again. Now, that's going to be a continuum throughout your career, and you'll probably never hit the second level, but that's not the point. The point is to move that pendulum, or move that ball down the field as fast as you want to, I should say, because not everybody has the same goal in terms of volume, in terms of revenue, in terms of hours worked, but as fast as you want to. And that should be the number one priority, is how am I moving this ball down the court as fast as I can to hit what I want for my goals. And the faster you do that, and your goals are going to be a byproduct of the service that you deliver as a service-based provider. So these are directly linear. So in my opinion, that is the number one thing. I find that there's a lot of young doctors out there, as we would say, is the accidental business owner, meaning that there's a lot of, sometimes there can be unknowing, sometimes there's a lack of confidence, sometimes there's just that's not my job, I didn't get into it for this, and bottom line is excuses. And I think the faster that you can push through that discomfort, move into action and consistent action, the better off your community will be, because you'll actually be serving people, and as a byproduct of that, the better off your lifestyle will be.
And on that note, I think it's also important, we talked earlier about knowing your skills and knowing what you want, to acknowledge that owning a business might not be your gig. Like, you can be a profitable, happy chiropractor as an associate, as a locum, in lots of other ways. And it can also be at different stages of your life, right? There's plenty of clients that I've worked with that were associates while they, had a young family. And then they decided their kids got older, and then they decided to open their own business. Or people that did it the opposite way, when they decided they didn't want to run a business anymore and they just want to go and be a chiropractor and not worry about payroll and marketing. And, you actually get to choose that. So, but if you do want to own your own practice, you got to hustle and make it happen. And I would say, even if you're an associate, to your point, like, get out there and meet everyone and find ways to grow your business. But you can kind of distill down like the kind of business that you want based on the role you want to have in it as well.
100%. I think now is probably the best time I've ever seen in my career to be an associate, to your point. I think that the wages have increased dramatically, the opportunities have increased dramatically, and it is a far different landscape, far better than when I came out of school nearly 20 years ago, when being an associate was really difficult. Those were the days of less than minimum wage and hopefully a little bit on the top. Whereas now you can find, in the States, you can find 6-figure associate jobs relatively frequently, which is really, really nice, and a dramatic change from where things were. So yes, there are many, many, many different ways to be able to utilize your interests, your skill set, and understanding that and exploring it too, right? Exploring it
and have fun with it, right? Like, practice is a marathon; it's not a sprint. I mean, unless you have a short-term goal with what you want to build, and then you want to sell a practice, or you have a really clear game plan. But I don't know about your life, but my life has been more curves and interesting than, here's a straight line, here's what's going to look like. So sure. I'm likely to embrace that. What is on your radar for things that you're working on right now? Do you guys have, certainly I'd love listeners to know where to find more about your work and your courses, but is there anything new for chiropractors that you guys are working on, or what would you like us to know?
Yeah, I think a couple things that come to mind off the bat are, I'll say 2 different Three different projects. And I'll go through them briefly. So three different projects that I'm really excited about. They're literally being worked on right now. Our Velo is a company that we're starting that's AI call agents for lead follow-up, for inbound, a variety of different ability to have phones answered inbound and or outbound 24/7, 365, which I think is really, really impactful. And I looked at that technology 3 years ago. I did not think it was good. We're looking at it today, and it's ridiculous. Like, it's so good. I'm like, this is better. I think I'm a pretty good communicator in terms of those types. I mean, this is better than I could do. I think it's really wild. So that's exciting. Within the Smart Chiropractor banner, we have a massive, massive project that we're releasing over the next month or so, I want to say, which is really a chiropractic media hub. We're utilizing a lot of tools behind the scenes to consolidate information, to really enable a hub of activity for chiropractors that have everything from products and services, discounts on them, event listings, and really be something that I think leverages, our expertise and trust that we've built over time, while also really amplifying the amount of content that we're putting out while still staying curated. So I'm really, really excited about that. And then Jason and I are working on another book right now as well, tentatively titled Look Up, which is really about the physical act of looking up, as well as, I'm going to say, the philosophical act of staying happy and things like that. So we're working on that book right now. That's going to be a little bit down the road before we get complete, but I'm excited about that.
Well, I can tell. I can see it in your energy and you talking about things. People want to stay in touch and find out more about what you guys are up to. Is Smart Chiropractor the best place, or is there another website you'd like us to direct everyone to?
Yeah, smartchiropractor.com. Great place to go to. Evidence Based Chiropractor podcast, or if you type in my name to Google, you'll find a lot of stuff comes up.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we put those all in the links. I've enjoyed our chat. I knew I would. Final thoughts for listeners. I love to ask people, like, how do you define success for yourself now? And for someone like you who's had, a career in practice and a career in outside practice as well, obviously, like, has that changed? Because again, we have listeners who are new grads to seasoned docs. I got another interview right after you with someone who's been in practice 50 years. And awesome. Which I love. But I know for me and for listeners, we're always challenging people to get clear on who you are and what you want and what does success mean to you. And for me, it's changed over the years as well. So I'd love to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'll actually give you a pretty brief answer on this. So
okay.
An acquaintance of mine, Peter Keller, runs a company called Fringe. They do like workout equipment, like Rogue Fitness or whatever, out of Austin, Texas. I saw him at an event many moons ago, about 10 years ago. He was wearing a shirt, I'll say the kind version. It said, "Lift heavy stuff." With cool people. And I'm like, that shirt, like, I still remember it today, because I'm like, that is my entire life. Like, do cool stuff with cool people. It's like, that's my definition of success. Am I doing cool stuff with people I like, respect, whatever the case may be? If that's the case, then, then in my opinion, it's like, I know if that's the case, those people are going to be hard workers who are motivated. The finances are going to take care of themselves. Yeah. So to me, it's just do cool stuff with cool people. If that's what's going on, then I know I'm on the right track.
Yeah, and you're also having a good time. So I think, to me, joy is a big metric for me too. And like you said earlier, there's things that you don't like to do. Well, we can delegate them. We can find other things. But there's things that light you up and people that light us up. And the more we can spend time with those people and doing cool things, I think we're a very, very blessed situation if that's the case.
Agreed.
All right. Loved chatting with you. Look forward to seeing you in person again one of these days. Listeners, be sure to check out the podcast. It's short, succinct, valuable. The emails that Jeff sends out are really great too. I know for me, I'm sincerely appreciative because they anchor some of the communications. They just give me something new to think about. When I read them, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. And it just plants these new seeds of knowledge into your mind, right? And being in practice 25 years, I know what I know, but I know that these new things that are coming out and new ways to explain it inspire me. And I really, really appreciate helping me communicate with people in the practice and with clients better. So thank you for what you do. Listeners, go check it out. And I look forward to seeing you again sometime, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.